Greetings, Sister Queens. This is Queen Mama Donna coming to you from the realm of exotic Brooklyn, New York. I'm very glad to be here with you wherever we are, out in the multiverse someplace, thanking to technology. I want to share with you the idea of the Queen. I know that the Queen is the focus of this year's conference, and I'm very honored to have been invited to present. And I want to thank actually the Goddess Temple of Glastonbury for being the very first Goddess Temple that adopted the concept of the Queen and adopted my concept of the fourfold goddess, and not the triple goddess, which was more traditional of the maiden, the mother, and the queen. But now, every goddess temple in the world has honored the concept of the fourfold goddess. The, we still have the maiden, we still have the mother, been there, done both of those, and now the queen, and then the graduate queen, who I call the empress, because honestly, I have met hardly any women anywhere in the world who like the term crone. So empress is so much better, I think, anyway. So this whole concept of the queen and the whole fourfold goddess came because a long time ago, it was probably 2002, the editor of a very prestigious national magazine wanted me to write an article about midlife women, about women in menopause, about women coming into the new stage of their life, leaving motherhood behind, and to write about the crone. Well, I balked. I don't want to write about the crone because I don't really identify, I didn't at the time either, identify with being the crone. I'm not, I wasn't an old lady then, and I'm not an old lady now. I'm glad to say that I'm a wise elder empress, but I'm not a crone, because the whole concept of crone is the kind of all the juices of the maiden and the mother are now dried up, and the crone sits on her throne and just kind of looks back at her life and analyzes her life and so on, without the concept of moving forward, keeping growing, keeping doing, keeping being. So I didn't want to write that article, and I did not write that article, but it really made me think. Well, if I'm not a crone and I'm not a mother, who am I? What am I supposed to be? So I was never a biologic mother, but I did raise a foster son. And I raised lots of different kinds of animals. So I did a lot of mothering, and I was ready to move on. And I was ready to move into a stage of growth that was about me. And so I started doing a lot of research. How do other cultures treat women after they've passed their mothering years? How do we think of ourselves? And I started to do a lot of workshops traveling all over, gathering stories and experiences from women in their mid years. And I started collecting what I call midlife mantras. I told myself if I hear somebody say this 1,000 times, it's got to be true. And the most popular one that I kept hearing again and again and again from women of all kinds in all places was, now it's my turn. Being a mother is a 24/7 commitment. But in your middle years, you're still a mother. You still have offspring, but they can take care of themselves, thank you very much, by now. And now it's my term. It's my time. Who am I now? Who am I now if I'm not responsible for all of these other people or animals? And it's not, I want to make sure, too, to be clear, that mother doesn't necessarily, it often does, but it doesn't necessarily refer to biological motherhood. Being a mother, being an archetypal mother, means that we have given birth to something from our own purpose and passion, and we have worked to keep it alive and healthy. That could be a business, that could be a professional practice, that could be a book, that could be a gallery exhibit of paintings, that could be anything that any woman decided was her purpose and her passion, and she did it, and now she wants to keep it so it can live long and prosper. So it was a very interesting time of research and collecting stories and talking to hundreds and hundreds of women. And I like to research. I always learn something new, and it's really interesting. But I also wanted to personally identify with the Queen. My goal was to meet the Queen face to face as equals and acknowledge myself as Queen and have that archetypal concept of Queen include me in it. So I set about a new practice, a new project that I called Before I Begin. I was committed to turn all this research into a book, and I already at that point had 3 published books under my belt. And so, I'm a writer, I'm a researcher. I wanted to write this. I didn't want to write about the crown. I wanted to write about the Queen. And so, of course, I continued all of my research, but I also felt it was really important for me to be a queen. How could I share information about empowering ourselves if I haven't gone through that process myself? That would be phony. How could I give ideas and inspiration and suggestions for how to support this transition, or what to do and what not to do, although it's not about giving orders. Every woman has to decide that for herself. But I wanted to be able to support, and because I'm a proud part of the enormous 1960s, the whole baby boom generation, there are millions of us out there. And at that point, we were all facing that midlife transition. And so it was important for me to create a manual, a queenly manual of some sort. And so I began to examine my own life. What more did I need to do, to know, to understand, to be able to write about the Queen? And the first thing I thought of was my physical self, that I wanted to have a strong, supple, and yes, beautiful body to be able to really feel queenly. I didn't want to carry around 20 extra pounds. I didn't want to be lazy. And I put myself on a regime, and I promised myself to walk at least an hour every day, which was very good. And luckily, I always had dogs, so I always had reasons to walk. Thank you, Bud and Ola and Poppy and all my animals who made me walk, which was great. And I also decided, I've had the same hairdo forever. I need a new hairdo. I need to identify myself, to look in the mirror and see myself as somehow evolved, somehow grown in my own image and in my own understanding of my own image and my own power over my own image. So I did. I got the haircut that I had for many, many years until, thank you very much, the virus hairdo that we all seem to share. It's kind of Rapunzel-like. Um, so my haircut was this kind of spiky thing that actually looked like I was wearing a crown, and I just love that. And it's my hairdo. And starting in 2 more days, I'm actually going to be able to get back to that. So I'm very excited about that. I also colored my hair for the first time in my life. And I made it kind of a bronzy, reddy color, but it was just like so much energy in my crown. It was just what I needed as a psychic energizer, really. So, okay, so I'm dealing with my body. All women have body issues, body image issues. We're always working on our body. I know that you all relate to this. But then, what about my physical space? Queens live in castles, in palaces. Where do I live? I had just moved to a new 3,000 square foot loft from my old loft where I'd lived for 17 years. And I was not completely unpacked. The place was a mess. It was under construction. There's dirt and sawdust, and if you've ever done any kind of physical repairs or renovations where you live, you know what a mess it is. So I had to conquer that mess. The queen doesn't put her throne in the middle of a junk heap. So I did. I really moved forward quicker than I thought I could on the renovation, and I created the spaces that I wanted, and I painted all the walls in this 3,000 square foot space. And I also unpacked all the stuff that I brought from my last home, which was another big loft, and found places for everything. I created my interior, as it were. I created my surroundings that could reflect my royal self. And then I realized, wait a minute, if I put my desk in the middle of 3,000 square feet, I won't be able to focus. How could you focus being surrounded with that much empty space? So I decided that I needed a small queen's quarters, and in a corner of my studio, I used soji screens to block off a little space that was really basically just big enough for my files that I'd been collecting on the queen, and my little desk and my laptop. And okay, so those soji screens were kind of bare and ugly, and I realized I have a trunk full of fabric that I have been collecting and saving for decades. This is 1940s bark cloth, which I love. It's fabulous, big floral prints, very luscious and delicious. And I covered the screens. I figured I was saving it for something special, like women do. Whenever we have something we really love, we say, I'm going to save this for something special. Goddess forbid, today should be special enough. And so, of course, I wanted the queen's quarters to be special. So I covered the screens in that. And I covered the walls with all kinds of images of queens, Queen Nefertiti, and the Queen of Sheba, and Cleopatra, and your queen mother, who I respect very much. And it was fun. Of course, it's fun to set up a new space for yourself. And the best thing that was in there was I found an old wooden medicine cabinet, and it had a glass door, and I hung it directly in front of my desk. So even while I was sitting and writing, I could see myself in it. But what was more important, when I opened the doors, I had an amazing altar that I created from icons and images and statues, not just of actual royal queens, but women who I honored and respected and wanted to be like. I wanted their power to come and inspire me and infuse this book with support for women everywhere to be our best possible self and never stop getting better and better and better. So when I needed to, I left the altar open, the doors of the altar open, and I could be inspired. And when I had enough of that, I would close the doors and I'd look at myself and try to see myself as the queen of me. That's all. I don't want to be the queen of you. I don't want to be the queen of Brooklyn, New York. I don't want to be the queen of the universe. I want to be the queen of myself. And I have to say that during all this process, I have been becoming her. And as I said before, on my last birthday, I graduated from being the queen to being the empress. And so there's no end to our growth and our empowerment, is really the basis of what I'm trying to say here. So I wanted to write this book. My files were full. I had all kinds of research and all kinds of other women's stories. I was ready. And then I did this entire process that I called for myself. I called it Before I Begin. Before I begin, I have to be the queen of myself. Or how dare I make suggestions for anybody else? So I did all those things that I said I did, and I did them religiously. And okay, I tamed my space. I made it the way I wanted it to be. I made it very lush and lovely and beautiful. And I tried to do the same with myself, although I am not going to dare talk about myself as being lush and beautiful. But satisfied with how far I've come. And so I was finally I couldn't wait to start writing. And I was finally ready. So on that night, I made sure my hair was good. I took a lovely, long, loving bath with flower petals in the water and beautiful fragrances. And I had been shopping for the perfect outfit to write in, and I found a beautiful purple, the royal color, silk, what would you call it? It's kind of like a caftan. And I put that on and I anointed myself with all kinds of lovely fragrance and also blessing oils. I blessed myself to be smart and organized and compassionate so that I could reach out to all women everywhere in sisterhood and in support. I bought a bouquet of beautiful red and purple roses, put them on my desk, put on my caftan, and then I made myself a champagne flute of Kir Royale. Okay, the queen must drink, Royales, in addition to tea, of course. I understand tea very well. And a Kir Royale is champagne with a little bit of Kir in it, which is, I don't even remember, but it's like a fruit essence. And so I lit the candle that I had specially made and decorated for the queen. I lit the candle, I took a sip of the Kir Royale, and I started to type. And, excuse me, I ended up with something like 900,000 words. And so then, kind of the second aspect of this saga of the book is that amazement of all, my agent was able to sell the book. Now, if there are any other authors out there, you know how hard it is to sell a book. And you know what you have to go through to write a book. Because most publishers demand at least a 60-page proposal. You might as well just give them the whole damn book. But I did that. I did all my homework. I did everything anybody wanted me to do. I had the proposal, and part of the proposal always has to be a table of content. It has to be an outline of exactly what you're going to say, when you're going to say it, how you're going to say it, etc., etc. I did that, and then I got this really letter, nasty letter from the publisher. It was written in 6-point font. You could hardly read it. It was page after page after page of criticism. I was shocked because the book was exactly what I wanted it to be. I was very pleased. Again, if there are any other authors out there, any other writers, you know you're not always pleased with what comes out of the end of your fingers on the keyboard or your pen or whatever. And what happens often in the process of writing, you can get halfway through and all of a sudden have a new concept, a new understanding, a new insight, and you might make a left turn or a right turn halfway through the book that you didn't expect. That's normal, that's natural, and I think that's healthy because you're still working, you're still growing. And that did not happen with this book. This book followed exactly the outline that I submitted. Finally, he says, I have to meet with you. And he said, is important here. So, first of all, what is the problem? That it's not personal enough. He wanted to know more about my foster son. He wanted to know more about my love life than he wanted to know about my growth and my coming into wisdom. And I thought, oh, this is weird. This is weird. And then when we had the sit down meeting, he said, and the title is a big problem. He said, The Queen of Myself. Isn't that selfish? And I don't know what I thought. I really thought I could just smack him one. Whoa, of course it's not selfish, as we all know. And then he says, I'm sorry, I just don't relate to this book. And I'm thinking, how can you? Number one, you're a man. Number two, you're maybe 35 years old. You are not in your midlife. You have no idea about anything in this book. And at that moment, I realized he's going to kill the book. It's easy for a publisher to do. And so I gathered up all of my courage and I said, I'm sorry, I'm taking this back. I had to return my advance. Every penny was well spent. I bought back the rights and I talked it over with my agent, who was totally on board. And that day I went to the Borough Hall. It's like the City Hall of Brooklyn. And I paid $25 to get a business license. And I called the business Monarch Press. And Deirdre, my wonderful agent, and my partner, and other sundry friends all supported this effort, either hands-on. One woman designed the book, beautiful. Oh my gosh, it's a beautiful book. And others donated money, etc., etc. And more important than anything, expertise, because I knew zero about being a publisher. I knew how to be a writer. I hope I know that by now. But I had no concept how to be a publisher. And I had to learn everything from the beginning. Luckily, one assistant, Sarah, was fantastic, very organized, very smart. She was really helpful. She didn't know either, but she studied and she helped me learn. And my other assistant is Patricia. was a wonderful artist, and she did the design. So I learned a lot. If I had my choice, I wouldn't have had to learn that. But I did. I found a printer in Canada, which was cheaper than having it printed in the US. Unfortunately, I paid for it by not realizing what I was doing. The shipping from Canada made up all the difference of the money I thought I was saving. I learned a lot, and I learned a lot the hard way. And then we had to find a distributor, and then we had to get some PR out there, get some notices for it, etc. On my way back from setting up this business, which is on paper, it's not a whole big thing, but I realized that I went over the book again, and if you've seen the book, if you've read it, I use a lot of quotations and a lot of poetry by women. And I always give an attribute, including the dates of that woman, their birth, and hopefully not their death. And I had a great quote from Dr. Christiane Northrup, and I realized I couldn't find online, I couldn't find anywhere her date of birth. And I know some women are sensitive about that, but how could she be the only one that didn't have one? So I sent an email to her office, and her assistant told me that Dr. Northrup never gives that information unless she knows the context of where it will appear. So I thought, well, okay. So I sent the manuscript. This is where it's going to be. Here's your quote. I had a little, posted on the page of her quote and so on. By return mail, I got a handwritten note for her with an exquisite blurb for the cover of the book. I did not ask her for that. She loved the book. It was like, so the minute I bought that book back, turned into a miracle of spiritual support. And I had to do that. And I didn't do it to get a great blurb. I did it because I felt that I was defending the right of women to define their own self and define their own power. And if I let that guy censor me, the whole book would be a sham. The whole book was about the power of women, and I'm going to say, okay, yeah, queen of myself, yeah, that's selfish. I couldn't do it. My morals, my ethics, I could not do it. And I was rewarded in a totally unexpected way. And every time I sent it to some magazine or some, whatever, it turns out that it would land on the desk of a woman reviewer. Well, they all loved it. Now this book, let's see, 2000, and it was first published, I believe, in 2004. I could be a little off. But look where we are now. I mean, this is all these years later. The Queen of Myself is still my best-selling book ever. So it's been quite a process. I've learned, and I've been able to come into my own power in a very self-affirming way. I don't shy away from it, but I don't, it's my power. It's not my power over you or anybody else. I would never go there. But we all have that power. And so I want to take this opportunity to invite you all and hope that you all will attend the workshop that I'm going to be doing via Zoom, where we can gather again together in the airwaves, for the Goddess Conference in August. Because I've decided that workshop should be a ceremony. It should be a crowning ceremony. It should be a vehicle where we can state and claim our purpose, our path, and our power, where we can embrace it with no embarrassment, where we can literally crown ourselves as the queen of ourself, and we can wear that badge and that crown with dignity and honor. And this is the time for us to stand up, because women around the world right now are standing up. Women in the United States were responsible, specifically black women were responsible for overturning our very upsetting 4-year cycle with the psychopath. And it's women all over the world that are inspiring and demanding change, but not just demanding it, making it happen. Women are not just the idea makers, the thinkers. They're the doers. We are the doers. We make change happen. And we make change happen on so many different levels. And we each have our own cause celeb. We each are making change in our personal life, in our relationship life, in our business life and professional life. And we're making change in the world. And it's women specifically of a certain age. Yes, there are wonderful Greta Thunbergs in the world. They are magnificent young women, absolutely. There were wonderful young women who stood up after the shooting incident at the school in Florida. Incredible young women. Incredible women of every age. But when we look around, who are the corporate leadership of women? They are all women of the queen age. They are past their motherhood. Doesn't mean they don't still have children, but that's not their main purpose in life anymore. And you look to government. Not only do we have more than ever in the world heads of state who are women, and some studies about the pandemic came out saying that countries who were ruled by women did much better in terms of organizing during the pandemic. And I believe it. I believe everything. One of my sheroes, and I'm not remembering her name offhand, names are not my best topic, but the president of New Zealand. The United States right now is having a horrible, horrible, horrible run of gun violence. More people in the United States own guns than any other place in the world. And nothing seems to be done about it. The women who've lost their children in school, in kindergarten, in preschool, in high school, in college, are leading this fight. But the role model and the queen of the queens in terms of taking on a danger and getting rid of it is the president of New Zealand. After that horrible shooting of the mosque in New Zealand, I believe there were 40-some people murdered. It took her one day to make firearms illegal in New Zealand. And she did it in such a way not to anger every gun owner. She did a buyback program where nobody said, well, this gun cost me whatever, No, she did it in a way that wasn't so painful, and she did it in one day. We have so many role models And now it's our turn to be the role model. So I'm going to sign off. I'm going to say goodbye, see you in August, and I'm going to give you the wave. And this is our queen wave. This is how we can recognize each other in the mall. These are the queens. We are the queens. You are the queen. And I bless you to leave this talk and walk the talk in your own vocabulary, in your own language, in your own vision, in your own decisions. Whatever you're doing, do it with power and purpose and passion. Bless you, and signing off from exotic Brooklyn, New York. Bye.